Yeah.
So I wonder if some of the sub-goals capture that, where develop a complete streets policy or ordinance, replicate the streetscape of the village core that expands, and identify funding sources for unified signage in Newmarket's downtown. So those implicitly speak to micro-mobility, but they don't necessarily explicitly do that, where, you know, your neighbors to the north in Durham are facing quite a situation with micro-mobility and all the students that are zipping around campus and downtown and running into traffic hazards because of that. So,
could we
if you'd like to see
with the complete streets policy to incorporate micromobility?
That and also the safety improvement, the local safety improvement plan that was under the accessibility. Do you have the Wi-Fi that doesn't kick me out every 10 minutes?
TBS. I'm just on TBS.
The question is the password.
Yeah.
I had it written down, I just don't.
We want to tell the entire town what it is.
Oh, sorry.
No, I would just write it down, but I
Don't be like me and start blurting out passwords over a Teams meeting. So I will make sure something is more explicit on micro-mobility, since that is a hot emerging issue.
It seems like we could incorporate it into the complete street policy. Or other goals that we already have listed there, just to kind of put them at that pace.
It seems like it should be carried on because it's a big deal. You know, it's going to be.
Yeah.
Its goal should almost be in connectivity though, right?
I think it could fit under connectivity, and then where we have a little later down where we talk about safety under the accessibility chapter or the section. So yeah, it could go anywhere, and like, I mean, it's not going anywhere as an issue except becoming more of one. So I think it would most certainly be incorporated into some local policy that we develop later on.
Can I backtrack one and just think about
Please.
something?
No, please.
That's what we're here for.
Okay, so in the first paragraph, about midway, the design of Newmarket's current village core is key to vibrancy. Historic buildings along well-lit streets that promote slow vehicle speeds. Do we want to say slow there? Or should we say moderate or moderated speeds?
Control.
I mean, it's just, sometimes things strike me as, I mean, like,
what do you mean by slow? 20, 25 miles an hour, 15? 20, I mean, I think, is it 25 now going right through town? It's 25.
yeah.
I could say something like well-lit streets that moderate vehicle speeds. Or, I see what you mean.
Encourage safe vehicle speeds.
Yeah.
I think that that's probably, because once we're using words like slow or moderate, it's really up to interpretation versus saying it's 20 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour, but safe, I think, is probably, and it varies.
Yeah.
If it's a busy day and there's lots of people crossing the street, then obviously they'll be hopefully going slower.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
Are we prepared to workshop words such that this can be passed on to the master plan committee next month? Was that the plan for tonight?
Oh yeah, for committee members that where another chapter wasn't ready, will not be ready for the March 12th master plan subcommittee meeting. So we're gonna slot in there. That was the plan anyway with this chapter. So good question. Any edits tonight we'll incorporate and then plan to present them a month from now at the, what time does that meeting start?
5:30.
5:30?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say anything that we don't necessarily get to here, also to provide an opportunity for more thorough review for our new member. We can, and I believe Sonika is working on some edits and comments as well. So you can direct those to Mark or myself to make sure that they get to them before that March meeting.
Any other questions on vibrancy?
I have just a kind of general question. The village core, we've been using that term in conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know if the other chapters are using the same term when referring to that area?
Good question. I don't know. I'll make a note and make sure that we got consistency.
And definitions, I think, are important too.
I think at least some of them are, because some of the other conversations we've been having about that, but I've also heard downtown village,
Mhm.
so it could be a maybe a slight variation of one of those, but just making sure that we're consistent with the other chapters on that preference.
And once a term is settled upon, should it be capitalized?
Because it almost strikes me as branding too, with something like this. It's not just a term, it's,
Are we talking village core from, let's say, the library to,
we haven't defined it geographically.
Yeah,
And not to get ahead of myself, but thinking as that expands, that's what I was talking about,
Right.
gateway roads that I don't want to define because the gateway is going to move
right,
as the village core, however you envision that,
okay,
expands out. So we have avoided geographic
all right,
definition.
which is fine, I just wanna make sure we're on the same page, and I do understand the whole gateway concept, so that's, we're good.
well, the downtown riverfront chapter has an outline of what they consider the downtown riverfront area, which is probably fairly reasonably corresponds to what we're calling the downtown, or
Okay.
the village core. So I think it's probably within some of the chapter, or at least some of the chapters, some definition of that.
Okay.
We can just kind of make it
I
consistent.
can do the track changes on that.
Yeah, I think that's
Okay,
just
if you want to do that.
consistency.
Yeah.
The term gateway is nice. You were talking about the, one paragraph, under vibrancy, you were talking about primary entry and exit corridors. They're gateway corridors. Maybe that's the term they were looking for.
I like gateway corridors if others do. It is sort of, it dovetails with other general transportation jargon, gateway treatments and things, so I'm partial to it, but it didn't seem like there was consensus on it last time.
Oh, okay.
These routes act as primary, what are we using instead of primary entry corridors? Or is that what
Well, wondering about
Okay.
using gateway
gateway?
corridors.
Or adding exit, entry and exit corridors. A gateway seems to encompass everything, but I wasn't here for the discussion.
Right. Yeah, there was some discussion about, I think about gateway corridors as a term, but it's still up for discussion. I kind of think it feels like an intuitive term, but I don't know. Okay.
I like using gateway. I like using gateway.
It's a term I'm familiar with, which is why I said
Yeah.
it's other, I mean, and it is used in other areas, I think it transfers from one town to another, it's, so that somebody else reading this would know what we were referring to.
I guess I'm remembering part of my,
But I'm trying to look at the minutes to see where it was discussed.
it wasn't reluctance, but question, because the town did the gateway study that more or less defined gateway areas for future development down by
Oh, that's right.
108 and Ashwant Road and a little farther up north,
Okay,
that were, I didn't know if that was going to cause confusion.
or if that was being discussed, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, because those were more like gateways between neighboring towns.
Right.
Mhm.
That was yeah.
So I don't know if the term gateway still meshes, since this is a gateway corridor, and those gateways were on those corridors. So I don't know.
How many gateways can you have?
And
So I think sticking with entry and exit
for now,
It's just fine.
It's
People-
clear what it is.
people- Yeah, it's close.
It's not unclear.
People want to it.
And village core to be decided on once we figure out what the consistent.
Alrighty. Next. There weren't too many text changes to the connectivity section. I'll come back to that table at the top if there were any updates to that, Mark. But for Carol, on the second page of the connectivity section, there are a number of bicycle and pedestrian connection opportunities that were ranked by people from the survey. So these are kind of in order of preference from folks we heard for. And that was 95% of the respondents were Newmarket residents, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, both of those could become maps, but like
Yeah.
the design, the ones from the survey, that'll obviously be like, we'll make sure that the presentation makes sure it looks highly hypothetical or conceptual rather than committing to.
And the only other text updates were on page 6, below the picture of the downtown, toward the last 2/3 of that paragraph. 108 and 152 are the primary routes drawing travelers to town. Again, as folks near the town increase, density and pedestrian activity increase. So speaking to road designs to decrease vehicle speeds as density and pedestrian activity increase. So that's where that traffic calming term comes in. So I try to avoid jargon, but I wondered if traffic calming is a descriptive enough term to leave in here. Up for your input. And then I put a couple of examples in the appendix, and can add more. And it looks like I left the end of that paragraph hanging there with traffic calming techniques, so that just needs to be deleted. So that was one section. And then I highlighted the very last paragraph about Newmarket being an excellent location for a future passenger rail station. And add a second sentence, adding a stop to the down Easter route will require increased capacity. I think it says could on there, but it will. And that was, I think that's just an edit that got lost. But yes, that it will require increased capacity. And sort of speaking to Newmarket becoming part of the collaboration to increase that capacity, working with Dover and Rollinsford in particular. That's where one of the weak points is on the rails.
I think we have one grammatical edit on, I guess it's page 5, just underneath the chart of origin and destinations. Second sentence, you begin, they like the walkability of the village core.
Oh, okay.
That should say residents or
Yep,
respondents.
Respondents enjoy.
Sure. Okay, good catch, thank you. Any other questions, issues?
I like using the term traffic calming.
Okay.
I do too.
I think it's becoming fairly common now.
A little more mainstream. Yeah.
Yes.
I just think it's, even without being common or being jargon,
I was gonna say it doesn't sound.
it's a very understandable term, yeah. Basically, should say go slow, but
Right.
say it much more correctly.
All right. The accessibility section didn't have any major edits from last time I looked at it, I believe. Let's see.
We condensed the paragraph about.
Oh, wait. I'm just looking at the first page. Yeah, there are edits. Go for it, Mike.
We did condense the paragraph about the transit access study that we're completing with the sidewalk index and all that. You have a sentence highlighted.
Yeah, so on page 9, last paragraph, I just realized that we still had the gateway term in there. So might need to tighten that up to not confuse the specific locations that were assessed as, gateway developments in the study from, I don't remember how many years ago that was, but under 10, I think. Let's see. I highlighted, I think it was a new bit on page 10 next to the picture of the street art, kind of complete street, that is an example of a street with similar traffic volumes to downtown, Newmarket's downtown.
Yeah, I took that from the caption to the paragraph.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, was this where we eliminated the comment about parking? There was a quote in there that
Yes, that's where these were back to back, and we took out the.
requested to remove that.
Mm-hmm.
And so just thinking of in the goals, number 1 and number 2 on page 11, I took a stab at some consolidation here. And so number 2, this is my shot in the dark, develop a local transportation strategic plan. So open to defining that, but thinking of the individual pieces of that we've discussed so far, of developing the town parking plan that's going to come out of the parking study, the local road configuration standards, whatever we're going to call those, and Bart had a good thing at the meeting this afternoon that I've completely lost, of a way to talk about that, and then a local safety improvement plan, which we are already sort of starting with our regional safety action plan. So the analysis from that being done by VHB can be pulled out and speak to things in Newmarket. So trying to kind of squish all of those things into some sort of transportation strategic plan. So wondered what you thought of that idea of a strategic plan, if that's too much, or thoughts are.
I like it. Do you think is it intended to be like a road reconstruction strategic plan or redevelopment strategic plan?
Well, maybe it's to all of the above, because those different actions, I sort of made those the sub goals, and I don't want it to try to be too much all at once, but those sub goals being the components of that strategic plan. I'm actually answering your question.
Yeah, I think so.
And I only tried that because it didn't seem like it wasn't adding anything, it was just consolidating. Like the parking study is going to happen, we've already talked about the road configuration standards, not classification, and then the safety study is happening already.
Well, and I'm kind of asking the question in terms of thinking about we already have a pavement management plan.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of just focused on resurfacing and should be expanded to incorporate these other elements. And we've kind of talked about that a little bit at this committee.
Okay.
At some of these meetings before. And I think ideally, I would like to think that our road management plan is kind of that strategic plan, but I know it lacks some of those other elements being incorporated. It would be great if we could incorporate that. I don't know if it makes sense for them to all be in one, or if this is more of a considerations in the reconstruction efforts and redevelopment, or just in general as roads are.
Well, I would think the road management plan, you would want to coordinate that with some, if you're gonna repave a road or do a full reclamation, incorporate some of the, road configuration standards. We want it to look like this.
Yeah.
We're gonna go pave it anyway, so what can we do to improve X, Y, and Z while we're at it? So if, I think that, some of those pieces could speak to each other. And it would make sense for them to be sort of coordinated.
Yeah.
If you would call that a strategic plan, I'm not sure, but.
Bart said something about the implementation matrices being able to be forwarded to the CIP committee. So whatever this looks like, how do we get it in a shape that would be useful to them, I guess? If at all.
We reference the road surface management plan
Okay.
In CIP request. We also have a separate sidewalk study assessment, sidewalk extension, I forget exactly what it's called, but there's that plan as well. So we reference those plans when we're putting in the CIP requests. Maybe the strategic plan is a consolidation of those elements into one.
The strategic plan is not going to be incorporated into this master plan.
No.
This sounds more like
That would be a
an
separate.
everyday action plan or.
Well, I don't know. The road surface management plan is one that gets done every, well, this last one, it was 10 years from the previous one to the one we did a couple of years ago.
Oh.
It's an assessment of the roadways and then like a scoring.
It's basically a 10-year plan, like,
Sort of, yeah.
okay.
Well, that's a budgeting item, correct? So should we be careful to distinguish between, because I'm assuming, right,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
says these roads need this money,
Mhm.
right, where the things that I've described in here are less of
Not
that,
less.
right?
Yeah.
Concepts.
Sort of planning tools rather than a budgeting CIP thing.
So this is, I guess I'm just a little confused here.
Mhm.
When you say strategic plan, you're talking about all the elements that you want to, that this master plan wants to tell the town, the planning commission, everybody. These are the things that you need to consider and incorporate when you are coming up with next year's budget. Okay, what's the next thing on our road plan? What's the next thing on our, what does our pedestrian study say? How do these all meet together? Is that
I think,
what
yes.
we're trying to do here?
That's what I was trying to get at, and thinking of sort of a comprehensive set of strategies that could maybe inform the road surface management plan. Where I am less familiar with how things like the parking plan or a safety improvement plan or the road configuration standards, whatever we're going to call that, would inform the budget process. And that's where I'm second guessing myself in the distinction between like a complete streets policy and the road surface management plan, which is like the road surface management, these are our immediate needs,
Yeah.
where, this road's gonna crater if we don't pave it. So,
Could we look at it, I'm just trying to get from, let's say, the road surface management plan, which I understand, all right, this street is gonna be redone from here to here, and then reference this and say, what parts of this can we incorporate at the same time. Because I don't think anybody wants to pave and then redo something a year later.
Yeah, and we do that and also consider the other infrastructure asset management plans, like
Right.
sewer, water, stormwater, we need to do
Yeah.
upgrades to those.
So I'm maybe thinking of, instead of making the goal, develop a local transportation strategic plan, do something more along the lines of like coordinating the various, words are escaping me right now, but like coordinating these
Yeah.
things with
Right.
ongoing like CIP processes in some succinct, eloquent way of saying that. Like,
Yeah.
I think you're onto a column is that, there are certain aspects that are in place that are being budgeted for. And these ideas I like that, but it's not just this particular group, it's everybody coordinating all the, I don't know.
some sort of
aspects.
coordination of transportation improvements.
Coordination of
townwide or
plans,
something.
so that the work that's being done is being done in a mindful way to not only care for the immediate needs of, we don't want big honking potholes in the road, but looking forward, looking to the future, we're hoping to have this configuration here. Can we at least incorporate the start of it? Maybe can't do the whole thing, but lay the groundwork so that, it's not,
Yeah, and we also use it to,
you
mentioned the 10-year plan, and we may identify streets that should be addressed within the next 3 years.
Right.
But which year that falls into varies depending on the coordination with these other plans. And if we have a sewer project that's gonna be happening or projected in 3 years, we're not gonna pave that street this year and then come back.
exactly.
So
that-
we
that-
do some of that,
Mhm.
but not incorporating all of those other things like the safety pieces and.
So is it over planning if the strategic plan is like the marriage of the classification system and the road safety asset plan, RSMS? Is that the same
Yeah.
thing? Yeah.
RSMS.
Is that if it's the marriage of the two, or? Sorry, did I just confuse you?
Is it over planning if you do those together? No. I think that's how it should go.
Okay.
Well, so we're basically talking about finding opportunities to implement safety and
Yeah.
configuration improvements, like have the local road management plan inform those. It's like the other improvements flow from that budget strategy process, right?
Yes.
That's kind of what we're talking about. So use the road improvement priorities to strategically implement these other things
Yes.
that come up.
Things should
Yes.
work in concert with each other as much as
Yeah,
is practical and affordable.
yeah. I certainly wasn't proposing some overarching thing that would mess with the road surface management process, not like creating some umbrella strategic plan that would then, alter that.
Okay.
More coming from the CIP process, like tying things into the
Opportunity
CIP process,
working.
the opportunity, finding those opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay,
So what we're looking for here is language that directs that be done, not the actual plan.
Right.
yes.
Not developed, so
Not creating a new thing necessarily, but I think I'll play with some language to, maybe it's coordinate opportunities for additional transportation improvements through the annual, it's an annual process, the road surface management.
the assessments of the road surface is maybe every 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
We implement, I guess it's implement, we do the repairs that have been identified for a year in a given year,
Mm-hmm.
or some shifting around of those items.
Okay.
There are some aspects of it that are implemented every year. Seal cracking, or crack sealing and taking care of some of those things.
So are you Are you all on the board
I think-
comfortable with us kind of massaging, if the overall concept is we already have the road service management plan, if that's the right word, or the local road management process that happens,
Yeah.
and finding a way to tie in other things like while we're repaving that road, make it more accessible for pedestrians, and that's informed by the configuration standards that we've been talking about.
Yeah,
Um,
I think we're on the same page in understanding, it's just rather than
Calling it.
calling it.
Right.
Or said making the goal develop.
Strategic plan was too much, yeah.
A way to work those elements into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can work on how to
Okay.
word that goal.
Does that make sense, everyone?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Didn't create too much confusion. Affordability, anything you wanted to highlight here, Mark? I didn't really flag anything in particular. Thinking about transportation affordability, and Carol, we've talked about coast and then focusing on the kind of on-demand services, potentially looking at ways to expand the Route 7 on-demand service, and making sure the other on-demand services like Ready Rides, Task, Lamprey, and all these other
Be careful, because Task is not available in Newmarket.
True. Yeah.
That's what, I am the director of Task Rides, which is a volunteer driver program that Ready Rides is based on.
Yeah.
But it's not, Ready Rides covers Newmarket, and we've worked hard to try to build a network of volunteer programs throughout the southern part of the state. So, yeah, no, this is a piece that I think it's like, oh, okay, this is my area, I get this.
So, yeah, if you see any red flags, please let me know, Carol, but kind of building up to something like a renewed fixed route service, which will be a tall order. But, in the interim, making sure these specific trip purpose type things like Ready Rides is non-emergency medical transportation only. And age restricted. So where are the other gaps? If someone isn't over 65 and can't drive themselves, what are their opportunities, and are they being missed?
I think now GSIL, Resident Independent Living, is not available for trip.
Is not? Okay.
It doesn't coordinate services, that's a content base. Future Insight is not coordinated for trip. Future Insight is the form of the Vulture Association for the fund. Which are all fine, except that we have, at the end, it says are available via trip.
Okay. And that, it might have been just, I think that was just looking at the services listed for Newmarket on the Community Rides website. But you're correct, so those aren't like TripLink. So you can't sign up for a ride for Future Insight via TripLink.
Future Insight is program specific, and you have to be a client of Future Insight, which
Yes.
is a form of the Vulture Association for
So
it probably shouldn't even be in that table at the
well,
next page?
It's definitely available to Newmarket residents.
it's just not TripLink where there's the universal application process. So a Newmarket resident could call
Okay.
Future Insight and get onboarded as a client. So we'll make sure that distinction is there. Thank you.
No,
okay.
I think, I don't want to, I'll let Colin know I did anything else. I just want, I spend a lot of time dealing with people who are getting information and having them call our office and having to say, how do you do this?
Yeah.
We can't help.
Yeah.
So I'm always very conscious of ensuring that the language used,
Yes.
no one is intentionally misleading anybody.
Correct.
Yeah.
And sometimes, but sometimes it's very long daily, so a lot of times, like,
Yeah.
you're in a very
That's-
bad place,
That sucks.
and I don't know how to help you.
Yeah. So we won't make
Yeah.
more
Okay,
work
and
work for you,
Oh,
at the
no,
very
as
least.
long as you don't mention me in the approach, because we are not available in Newmarket.
Yep.
But I will just double check that and make sure that you're listing the things that you're saying are available via AAA are indeed available via AAA.
Totally.
It's very easy.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sure.
And so we talked about Amtrak, because we heard from a lot of folks through the survey that Newmarket residents are looking to things like C&J and Amtrak to connect to other larger transportation hubs, like going down to Boston Logan, or for leisure, like going up to Portland and so forth. So that is a current resource, and we'll work towards a whistle stop cafe and a passenger rail station for Newmarket. I think that was all I really had on affordability. Unless I missed anything you wanted to touch on there.
I realized how numbers heavy I got in here. Between the survey and the ridership data, I got a little carried away, so I can certainly clean that up if you'd like. I can push that other places, or we can keep it as is, or just concerned about readability.
I like numbers.
Thank you for the validation.
I like to see the data.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
And if you go home and read it more and come up with something else, please contact us through Lindsay and Bart. Resiliency didn't change too much here, only to kind of speak a little bit more to Newmarket's place as a coastal community, and kind of becoming directly involved in the
community of stakeholders around coastal resilience. New Hampshire's working on a comprehensive climate action plan right now, and they have a number of subject area interest groups. I'm participating on the transportation technical input. Right. And then they're speaking to like natural resource area folks as well. So that's an ongoing thing. And then the legislative Coastal Resilience Hazards Commission is doing a full update too. So I believe Newmarket is participating in all of that, but just making that explicit. And then the last bit there was just thinking of the transportation network as a resilience asset, not just a liability. So designing roads that can absorb the shock of a big rainstorm with contemporary designs, like a little jargon in there, vegetated basins, so I can make that something different, but shed the water into a thing that allows it to drain naturally. Let's see. And then just thinking of resilience as a concept, not just for infrastructure, but people. So if there are alternative routes, if you have a road blowout somewhere, and then for individuals, if someone loses the ability to drive, that can be crippling in a rural area. Are there alternative options for them to continue their daily lives?
One picky grammatical thing. As I'm resiliency, first paragraph as it ends, we're talking about sea level rise and portion of the river. And then, are there parts of town where people could be cut off during a storm or the transportation network fails? Is that a question? Or are you?
We can do a rhetorical question.
Where?
Yeah.
The last sentence of the first paragraph.
Last sentence of the first. Oh.
Are there parts?
Yep. I just forgot a question mark.
Okay. I wanted to say, are you doing a rhetorical question or are you trying to make a statement?
No.
Thank you very much, Colin. I'm very happy to.
Okay. All right. Any other?
So third paragraph down, Newmarket should have an inventory of local transportation infrastructure. Should that be a goal, or is that listed as one of yours?
Oh, that could be. Let me see if I put that as a sub goal. I don't believe I did. So that, I mean, it is basically a goal statement, right?
The goal said, have an inventory that, and as part of the goal said, that is updated regularly,
Mm.
because, you know, in this day and age, an inventory could change next week.
Does that make sense? Everyone is a,
For example, a taxi company in Exeter closed 2 weeks ago.
right?
What?
Making that, making Newmarket should have an inventory into some sort of goal statement. And then Carol's just saying that it gets updated regularly, so that it's not
So the,
an iterative.
I think we do actually have, well, I know we have some information on the vulnerabilities mapped in our stormwater asset management program currently.
Okay.
I think we may also have some of those areas identified in our hazard mitigation plan.
Right, yeah, I'll check in with Stephen. Stormwater.
And if it's just a matter of making sure that you guys have reference to where that information is, that's good. We should definitely have the goal to update it regularly.
Okay, and yeah, if it exists, then it's just regular updates and then tying it back to the whole thing we were talking about with the CIP process and just.
Yeah.
So should it be defined in here with,
Where the plans are, where the
Yes.
information is.
yes,
There's an appendix.
I guess I would defer to community facilities and utilities section, because that's where we cover stormwater, and I think that's where we've had most of the discussion, at least with Lisa, on hazard mitigation and working that stuff in. So we may have utility maps that are in there, and could just reference it there.
That makes sense. And the last bit I wanted to cover was in Appendix A. I put a couple of examples of traffic calming techniques, where the curb extensions for pedestrian crossings, and then medians in the middle of a street for pedestrian refuge. As two examples to throw out there and see what you thought. You already have, I left some of my bullets in there accidentally. RRFBs are what are currently in downtown, where the pedestrian hits the button and the lights flash. That's
Okay, I was gonna say, I've seen that, and it's an RRFB, okay.
a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. That's what that's.
That's what I was saying.
It's very unpoetic.
A flashing pedestrian sign, yeah.
Yeah.
Or
if it came from the German,
Flash.
it's very literal.
Transportation needs better acronyms.
Yeah.
I've heard them called wigwags. Because of wigwags, because the way the lights look, they look like a little wig, something going wigwag.
I just thought they were electronic crossing signs, pedestrian crossing, but,
Yeah.
that's, and yes, no,
Colin, I have a question about the wigwags, actually.
Okay.
So, the lights are on for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, we of course have to accommodate slower walkers,
Mhm.
parents with children, elderly. But sometimes somebody will cross, and then that light will stay on longer than it took that person to cross.
Mm.
Is it possible that you can have a toggle switch that you hit it when you cross, and when you get to the other side, you hit it and turn it off?
I haven't seen that. I'm guessing it would be forgotten enough. So if they don't hit it, would it just keep going?
For the time that it's
Yeah.
scheduled to now.
or is there a chance that somebody else walking along the street with, you know, kids having fun pushing?
Oh,
buttons?
kids love
Yeah.
pushing the ADA buttons to get indoors and stuff. I wonder, I don't know if it's possible if those can be calibrated so that if you have a narrower space to cross, it doesn't flash as long. So I wonder if that can be changed. But I don't know of a different system. So there is,
Have you-
the little computer has a set time.
I've not timed them. I've just noticed that, you know, again, it's like having a stop sign where you should have a yield sign. You know, people just treat it as a yield sign, it developed, I don't want to say contempt, but
Yeah.
it seems like, these crosswalks are so important in our downtown.
Mhm.
And a lot of times you'll come up to the crosswalk and the person has already passed and the light is flashing and it will flicker.
Right.
So you stop, and I think we, it's better to err on the longer side, but I was just thinking about it one day, and I was curious if it could be either
Yeah.
a toggle, but, we don't even have compliance. You often see people crossing without pushing the button.
Yeah. Yeah, so the system breaks down if it's basically getting a false negative in that case, which almost eliminates it, because the drivers are looking for the lights, at least most of the locals are looking for the lights, and if they don't see them, especially at night, then that can run into problems. So, yeah, the not hitting the button is a problem, and then I think that the individual, I don't know if you can just like pop something open and, give the computer a new time, but that's theoretically.
It is, I've never timed it, and I've never really, to be honest, I've never really noticed the problem. But I would think the easier would be perhaps adjusting the timer
Mhm.
versus having it, because safety is the first thing on this.
Right.
I think there's probably standards. In fact, I
I
know
think-
there are
Yeah,
standards for how
NETCD
long.
standards
Yeah.
require specific timing on
Yeah.
those types of things.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I plan to try to put a few more examples in there, if those have a place, these kinds of,
You would, I don't, if you try to cross from Bennett Way over to Rite Aid, you're playing, what was that, Prager?
well, we just had a road safety audit at that specific location and talked about various improvements to be looked at, including a median.
Median, something to, it can be,
Yeah.
it can be a challenge.
One of our colleagues at SRPC lives on Bennett Way, and so knows that intersection well. And yeah, so there will be basically a study done, a whole host of alternatives from little things all the way up to a roundabout to be considered. And then the town will kind of discuss that and see what can be done in the short term. If it doesn't help, okay, we go back to the other alternatives.
Having a place to stop and just make sure you're
Yep.
is helpful.
Yeah, and also if you have, again, elderly and you need to stop and take a break, or you have a child,
Mhm.
it's nice to have a place you can. I like curb extensions on the Fannin curb. I feel like we have so many cars parking, on-street parking here, that some of the crosswalks, especially the one that's, it's at Crack Skulls, or it's right in the center of town, where there is not the wigwag. It's sometimes people, you can't see them because there's a car so close to the crosswalk.
One closer just beyond, going up towards Benway, but just beyond the community church. Trying to think of what's there, just a computer shop. That's another one that's, it's just, it's hard to see. If people are parked, and that's the biggest thing, if people are parked close to the crosswalk.
It's difficult, if somebody isn't tall, it's difficult to see them.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the one right there, right before the intersection of Main and.
Right.
Yeah, same problem there.
Yeah, so definitely things to consider, especially as the development moves out from the center of town. If it can't be retroactive, at least thinking about other crossings.
Yeah, no, definitely, extensions, the car piece.
Yeah.
Parking right there.
So are you looking for us to identify traffic calming techniques that should be in this amendment, or are you just kind of?
just a couple of examples, and I can put some more in there. I looked at, wider sidewalks, the Bennett Way example, when we were all standing around observing it, talking about narrowing the lanes if possible. So all of these things, just to be
Adding
considered.
lighting,
Lighting.
additional lighting,
Yep.
buffers.
Yep. And do you mind talking about data stuff real quick? Excuse me, I'm just gonna.
We, obviously the graphics are not in final draft form yet. We have to make sure that we consistency with the other chapters, and we have an appendix lined up. It just has to get plugged in to make it look great. If you've seen the housing chapter, you know that there were links throughout the narrative that you click and it takes you straight to where it is in the actual document at the bottom. So that's the plan for data. So we have a little bit of stuff that you already saw up top, like where people are coming and going from to work. A lot more drawn out ridership numbers across the coast, UNH Wildcat and Amtrak. I think I threw in, or I will throw in, the commute modes from census, which is not the same as the data source that tells you where people are coming and going from, but it'll, and I'll have that before and after COVID, so you'll see it before and after switch to work from home. What's the other one? Vulnerable populations as it pertains to transit, the elderly, those experiencing a disability, so yeah, that'll be in the data section. Yeah.
This is really beautiful. So nicely written. Okay, so we're finished with agenda item A. We need to move on to agenda item, or no?
So before we move on though, can we, for the additional comments from members that were not here, what would be a reasonable time frame to say that you guys need that information so that you would have that to incorporate into the draft before going to the March meeting?
You had a comment before I get to that.
Oh, mine is just a language comment, and once again, it's because of the world I work in. It's a word that we are avoiding the use of the word elderly.
Yes.
Because how do we define elderly?
Okay.
Older adults, because I've known people who are 55 who fit the definition of elderly, and I know 85-year-olds who are not elderly. So older adults, and that's just a reframing aging, that's kind of a...
The two places in here I just found I did not use the word elderly, so
Okay.
that was me on the fly here.
And I appreciate it because in your world, elderly works, but it's...
No, and we've heard that left and right, that's the transition, that's the pivot in the language, and I totally respect it.
We're trying to get it, because it does convey a certain image
Yes.
of great Aunt Tilly and her walker.
Yeah. We'll make sure
Thank you.
across the chapters that that's the language. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yes. So I guess we can't vote to send, you can't vote to send the language to the master plan committee tonight. Because you want comments to wordsmith a little bit from the 2 or 3 that weren't here.
Right, we haven't received comments from others.
Okay.
We could vote to send with incorporations, but we haven't had opportunity to see or discuss some of those other comments from Sunka and Mike.
But this is supposed to be put together by the 12th?
Right.
So we will not have the
Is there
opportunity?
Is there some sort of formal mechanism needed to bless it prior to the master plan committee? I've assumed.
That's a question for Bart. I don't know that it's, I think it should be recommended by the committees presenting to. I don't know if it has to be a formal vote.
Yeah. Well,
Could vote to send with the amendments that have been discussed pending, because that's the draft to present to them. So Mike and Sunka were here last time around providing input. Many of their comments have probably already been addressed.
maybe theirs are just minor at this stage.
So let me clarify, what you would be presenting would be a draft, which with our master plan, there would still be time to do some refining, revising if needed.
Yes, between the master plan committee and the planning board is the ultimate vote. So yeah, it's March 12th, master plan committee, and then April planning board is our time frame. So I guess, yeah, the question is, how do we get the kind of good blessing from the transportation subcommittee? And ideally, that would be before the master plan committee. Or does it need, or can it just be before?
We meet immediately after the
Right,
plan committee
that's the
meetings.
problem.
Right,
I was at the master plan committee just
Yeah.
before
they
this.
meet just
Yeah.
before this.
I don't know the protocol. There's a part of me that says if there is room for more revision after the meeting on the 12th, then it seems to make sense because this committee's not been getting together again
Right.
before then.
Mhm.
And I don't think anybody wants to hold up.
I don't want to get us in a weird 91A situation.
What situation?
91A, the right to know law.
Right to
I was
know.
going to say right to that. I didn't hear you.
Sorry, yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, not to put it on you guys, but I mean, we're flexible and
Yeah.
can even come down for something special if we need to.
Yeah.
Can there be some way of coordinating between the two committees on the 12th? Like, even though they happen in different chronological orders?
Can we meet at 5:30 and they meet at 7?
Maybe we could adjust the time on the meetings.
Can I ask, is it possible for the two who are not here, just some kind of, for them to submit whatever changes electronically that we can all just do? I don't know whether they have significant changes or comments in your comments.
Yeah, I imagine they do not at this stage, but I don't know that
We don't
for
know
sure.
that for sure.
So we can incorporate all those changes well in advance of March 12th and get something back out to you guys. It would just be a matter of meeting formally.
Yeah,
Could we just move our meeting one day, or?
you can, yeah.
that-
It could,
we
it could
just
be a
meet
different,
A couple days earlier, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They meet it. Because I would think if all we're going to be needing to do at that point is to incorporate.
yeah,
the
could be
input
it.
Yeah.
comments.
And bless it, yeah.
We want to make sure that we are doing all the regulations for that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I think, well, and I mean, typically at the end, we discuss the next meeting. It would be March 12th, if we don't reschedule, but we can defer that discussion to get some input from Mike and Zonka to make sure that they're available, and that we're not conflicting with another
That was the
already
same.
scheduled meeting, because I know you mentioned Monday, Riverfront Committee is on Monday, and Zoning Board, I believe. Tuesday is Planning Board, so that week, we could look to a different week, or like, but on Wednesdays, then we would conflict with Town Council, so we would need to get a little bit more detailed on that. So I guess we're deferring the vote on recommendation to the next meeting date, TBD.
Sounds like a plan.
If that works for you.
Yeah.
We'll try to do it in
We'll roll
advance
with it.
of.
Yes, and we'll get comments
Of course.
electronically to you. We'll try to just gather what we have within the next week or two and get that information. That's
Okay.
not hold up.
And we will get you a dolled up data, graphics cleaned up version too also. Yeah.
And the implementation matrix.
Yes, yes.
It has additional details like timeframes, lead entity, magnitude of costs, and then staff time and funding sources, so details like that to be filled in.
The electronic For those who don't know, the electronic version of the master plan will have a mapping component, I guess a very significant mapping component, where it'll be very interactive and click around to the various topic areas mentioned in each chapter and how they relate geographically. So we'll of course announce that when it's ready. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay.
So, no.
All right, so our next agenda item is a parking study update.
Yes.
Parking study update.
Parking study update.
Do you want to do that?
I can.
Okay.
I'm here. So currently, actually,
So
Mark's working
I
on.
I have the map to confirm the the lots that will be included in the study area. 99% done. I have to run it by Jackson. It's been out like for 5 days, so we're waiting for him to come back online, and then we can get that back out to you ASAP.
Yeah, so we confirmed the overall parking study area, and then part of that is the individual lots. So like every parking lot, some of them are private, some of them are public, some of them are in between, where like the Stone Church was one where we wanted to take a look at that and incorporate that into the study, but some of them are just going to be private residential lots. So the next step is to identify which of those parking lots will or will not be incorporated into the data collection. Once we get all of that, then Jackson can divide up the parking study area into routes that will be walked by data collection volunteers on an hourly basis. And we're expecting April will be the first month where reasonable weather is consistent, so we can schedule a time for folks to go out and walk each of these routes. There may be 3 routes, just as a spitball. So you'd need at a minimum, if there are 3 routes, you would need a minimum of 3 people to volunteer to go walk those routes. But that would mean each person would have to walk every hour without a break. So if you have 6 people, then you can alternate. You know, one person does a route, they go for an hour, and they switch off with their partner. So that's sort of the next step, is to map everything ad nauseum down to details, get those routes, and then get back to you all with some helpful bits to volunteer or recruit volunteers.
Were you still looking at this to confirm the lots by the end of this week? Because I can do my nudge tomorrow to get that out the door.
I don't know if it needs to be by the end of this week. I don't know if that was Bart's request.
Maybe that was.
He was kind of.
I think that might have been our internal deadline.
I'll
If it's not the end of this week, not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the next steps. And maybe that's one of the specific tasks for this subcommittee, I think, is the volunteer recruitment.
We think this would be a great committee for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
We would be looking for that, and we would be prepared to have more discussion about that at the March meeting in terms of taking a look at the routes and the dates and times and getting more into that, so kind of.
And we could have example collection forms for you very soon. Rachel's working on those for a similar parking study being done up in Somersworth. So we're anticipating the same sort of procedure where an individual person is walking down and actually recording license plates. And all that will get scrubbed later, but that's important to show if a car was parked in the same location hour after hour.
And one of the 3 of us will run the tutorial session.
Yes.
We've done this, we did this in Farmington, Jackson's done this in previous jobs, so we're.
Yeah, there'd be training and all sorts of things involved, so, yeah.
So we're hoping that some committee members, and maybe if you have friends or family that would be willing to also volunteer and help out, that'd be great.
So lots of people like to walk, it seems to me, it's like.
Yeah.
And we love it, we love being on the field for all of our transportation workers.
And me or someone else will be sort of stationed on call when folks are out walking around to collect the forms and troubleshoot things and sort of be a base of operations. So that's the plan. Hopefully get that all done in April so that we have well, we have an internal deadline of June 30th to get all of that wrapped up with a report and everything sent back to you all. Just that's our funding situation. So June 30th is when you'd have a
Parking study?
parking study done. So,
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
all right. Any other agenda items should stick around for?
Our third agenda item under, well, the updates on other transportation-related initiatives.
So that was me primarily. You already touched on the road safety audit. That was one of the things I was going to mention. The two committee members that are not here were in attendance at that. Sunka and Mike were there. DOT and their consulting engineer, VHB, ran the, I guess it is the audit, right? That was them. So they ran the audit, and the primary purpose was to gather information about the safety concerns from the town staff and committee members, elected officials. We had a pretty good turnout in terms of attendance. And after the just kind of general overview of the audit process and gathering information, then everyone went out to the site. So the study area is at the corridor on 108 that incorporates the intersection with Bennett Way and Terrace Drive. So it's both of those intersections and the space between them. We identified a number of safety concerns and brainstormed potential solutions to address some of those areas. So VHB and DOT are working on the summary report for that will incorporate a range of alternative improvement options, from simple stuff to adding the RRFBs and adding lighting or signage or other forms of signage, to potentially constructing a roundabout at Bennett Way. So from small and short term to big and long term planning. So that report, I believe, is supposed to come out in the spring. Is that what they said?
Usually a couple months.
Yeah.
And then those will have cost estimates, and so that'll be, then DOT will come back and kind of discuss those alternatives, and then the discussion has to involve the funding.
Yeah.
So you're definitely talking highway safety improvement program funding, federal dollars for that, but there will be some cost sharing negotiation depending on what alternative is selected. So, and that can vary widely. So a project up in Rochester or Somersworth, the town paid for some big trees to be cut down, and the federal funds paid for other improvements that were minor, like a modern stop sign and another improvement of some kind. So if it's a roundabout or something substantial like that, then you're talking probably like 80% federal, 20% local. But that is all to be discussed. And like Lindsay said, starting what is the lowest cost, highest impact thing, and let's start with that. And then if that doesn't fix things the way we want it, come back to the other medium cost, medium term thing. Yeah.
Yep. So that was January 14th. That just happened. We should have a report in a few months for that in the spring. The other item of update that I wanted to just kind of put out there and make note of is the town submitted a letter of interest and an application to DOT for the replacement of the pedestrian bridge by McAllen Dam, for that to be incorporated in the TAP plan, which is the Transportation Alternative Program. So that has been submitted. It is in review by DOT and the regional planning commissions for review and ranking, essentially, right?
Yeah, we still have, so DOT makes the final decision on what they have a scoring process. Part of their process involves regional planning commissions ranking the projects in their area. We had 3. So we will send to DOT a ranked order, 1, 2, 3, Newmarket, Durham, and Farmington all applied. Our process is based on a set of criteria that our committee members weighted. And then not the staff, but the commissioners and technical advisory committee members who represent their communities on our board will score all 3 projects, and then we'll compile all of that and present the results for a vote at the March meeting, 3rd Friday in March. So at that point, we will have a 1, 2, 3 ranking we send to DOT. Yeah.
Did you say that we're on like 15 projects in the whole state right now, or that applies or something?
I don't remember the number of projects, but they had planned for $25 to $30 million available for projects, and they got $50 million worth of projects submitted. So I don't remember what the total number is, but it's a statewide competitive process. Yeah.
And DOT makes their decision on which projects are incorporated this summer? Is that?
Their decision is due, I believe, at the beginning of May, if not the end of May.
Okay.
And what they are doing is ranking all the projects according to their criteria. They have an internal committee of people. They are basically making a recommendation to add the projects into the draft 10-year plan. That will get reviewed by governor and council and the legislature to be approved in the summer of 2026. So the funding for the TAP project will not be available until summer of 2026. Well, it'll go into be the approved 10-year plan in summer of 2026, and then you can start the process for actually getting the money. It's incredibly convoluted and not DOT's fault, but so they will have all the projects, a black line where they've run out of funding for all the projects, and the projects that ranked above that black line get recommended for inclusion in the 10-year plan.
Okay.
If that's clear as mud.
Mud, we should know more later this year.
So, in general, I have never seen an individual council member on the governor council like try to pull another town's project, or the legislature, because the legislature gets to fiddle with the 10-year plan. But individual council members have advocated for projects in their region. And I haven't seen one, get bumped because of that, but they do have their pet projects occasionally, and that's their prerogative. So it's a very long process.
Yeah. So those are just some ongoing things that we have been coordinating with DOT, transportation related. Figured this is a good forum to mention, provide a little brief update.
Lot going on. Okay, I think we're finished with the.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Good to see you, Carol.
Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 4. Do we have other business?
Any other business?
Any other business? No? Okay, do we have items to discuss at our next meeting, which is tentatively scheduled for March 12th, but I guess there'll be some discussion as to whether or not that will be the date.
Yeah.
Depending on
and
what
it sounds
we
like
do.
we will be discussing and trying to vote on the draft chapter being recommended to master plan. And we will likely also discuss the parking study for the routes and the volunteering. We can put a better in on that.
Okay.
I think those will be the 2 items.
So any changes to the time or date of our meeting will be available on the website?
Yes, we will. The meeting will be posted as usual for public meetings. We have to post them in advance. So when we have decided on a date, we will have our discussion on that. I will need to coordinate with Bart. But when we decide on the date, yes, it'll get posted on the website, and the agenda will be posted on the website per usual.
Okay. Any other business?
Motion to
I'm
adjourn.
looking for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
So moved, so
All right.
hereby declare this meeting done and finished, adjourned.
Thank you all.